Hey there. Tonight I wanted to talk about forgiveness. And the reason this subject came up is my husband and I were talking about our childhoods and how does this relate to business? Well, there's some things that might happen in your childhood, things that happened in my childhood, things that happened in my husband's childhood that we just didn't want to forgive for. And one thing I discovered is once I could have forgiveness in my personal life, it made it a lot easier for me to have forgiveness in my business life. So I'm going to give a great example. I grew up in a very abusive, alcoholic, volatile alcoholic household. And my dad was very abusive to my mom. And so when I grew up, I just thought that was the way it was, right? That was the way it was. A man is like that to a woman and a woman just takes it. And that was what I thought. But as I grew older, I started to kind of like blame my mom for a lot of the things that happened to me in my life. And I was like, gosh, she's so weak. She just was so weak in my mind. But somebody pointed out to me one day and they said, what if your mom wasn't actually weak, but she was actually strong because she put up with what she put up with? Well, the reason I bring that up is because I learned to forgive my mom because I was blaming her for all these things in my life, blaming her for so many different things in my life. And the reality was that she was living her best life. She was living the best life she knew how from what she grew up in. And so it's just kind of cyclical, right? It just kind of like carries on from years to years to years. And we can hold on to that thinking up here. We can hold on to it forever, or we can let it go. We can let it go. And the beauty is when we let go of the hard feelings, of the anger, of the hurt, of all the pain that we have from those who we believe caused that pain on us, and we can forgive them, then things open up in our lives, not only in our personal life, but also in our business life. Because once we can forgive those in our life who, like, for example, my mom's there to love me and nurture me, right? Well, I didn't feel loved and nurtured. And so I had all these bad harbored feelings towards my mom for not loving me and nurturing me like I thought I was supposed to be loved and nurtured. But maybe she did love me and nurture me the best she knew how. And maybe to her, what she did was the best love she could give. And so if I can look at it that way and switch the way I see it, then I can change my thoughts and I can forgive. So I did the same thing with my mom. I did the same thing with my dad. And I still find, even though I've forgiven my dad for the things he did and my mom for the things that she did, even though I've forgiven them myself, I still have thoughts that pop up into my head every once in a while that I feel like I have to re-forgive. I guess is what I'm kind of saying. It's like, I have to re-forgive them because it's still harbored pain inside of me. So looking at this in a business perspective, how do we look at this in a business perspective? Let's say you have a client who just totally screws you over and you hold on to that that person screwed me over. I have all this anger, this resentment, whatever kinds of feelings I have. I don't want to work with that person ever again, which is fine. You don't want to work with them ever again, right? But don't pull that anger and resentment from that person over to the next person. You want to make sure that whoever you're working with, that you give them a clean slate, a clean blank slate where you're starting from ground one or ground zero, whatever that means, right? Ground zero, like where it all happened, right? Ground zero. You're starting at ground zero with them. You're giving them a chance from the very beginning instead of giving them like some preconceived ideas of what you think might happen with them because maybe they did an action that was similar to the other person. But remembering that this brand new person is a brand new person and they come with a clean slate and you let them start from scratch. So I bring this up because oftentimes our anger and resentment that we hold for others because we haven't forgiven can be carried into all aspects of our life. So if we can learn to forgive those in our life that we feel did us wrong or caused us some pain, if we can learn to forgive them and move on with our life and just like let that go. Every once in a while it might pop up again, but let it go again. It pop up again, let it go again. But it'll make it a lot easier later in life when things go wrong, because things will go wrong. This is life. This is just life. So when things go wrong later in life, we can learn to forgive sooner. Because now that we've forgiven something that we've been holding on to for maybe a year, 10 years, 20 years, 30, 40, 50 years, when we're holding on to some anger and pain and resentment for such a long, long time, it takes a little bit longer for us to slough it off and let it go. But now you're experiencing something brand new in your life, or you're starting to feel some resentment and anger or pain that's coming up. If you can recognize that quickly, you can forgive sooner and move on. I just wanted to share about forgiveness. It's really an amazing attribute that we have as humans, that we have this ability to forgive. So go out there and think about, like, what are some of the things I'm holding on to that I really need to forgive about? You know, I do this on a somewhat regular basis because things pop up. I'm a human being, just like you are. Things pop up and I have to remember that, oh yeah, this is something I need to work on. These are resentments that I have, or this is things that I need to forgive them for. And you don't have to actually forgive them to them. It's really forgiving them for you. And sometimes you have to forgive yourself too, for some of the things you've done, some of the things you've said, and some of the ways you've acted and reacted. I do that with myself often. Whew, almost too often. But there's a lot of things, a lot of things that I've done in my life that I've regretted, and that instead of harboring that and holding on to it, it's like letting it go by me getting rid of that, that resentment or that feeling that I have towards something that I did, and like releasing it, letting it go, and moving on with my life. Like, I'll give an really quick example. Something happened just recently where somebody sent me a message, and I looked at their message and I was like, I can forgive myself for that, and just like quickly just forgive it and let it go. But that's because I've done a lot of work on myself to forgive myself and let things go. And then also to learn to forgive others. And like I said, you don't have to go to them and say, hey, I forgive you for this, because they might not even know that they did it. They might not even know that they did it. And that's okay, because that's not what matters. What matters is that you are able to release it within yourself and let it go. So I just wanted to pop in and talk about forgiveness. And this is Linda West with Living Life, Inc. And I'm so excited some of the things I have going on. If you're interested in learning more about what I have going on, like, for example, right now I'm working on a collaboration book called Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore. I'm looking for female authors who want to be part of that collaboration book. You don't have to write anything. I actually just interview you, and then the ghostwriter that I have a ghostwriter that I've hired for the book will actually write the book. So you don't even have to write anything. How cool is that? So if you want to learn more about that, go ahead and drop in the comments, I'm a collaborator, or type I'm invincible in the comments, and I'll reach out to you, because I'd love to have you be part of the book to share your story of how you went from being invisible to being invincible. If you feel like you were invisible and now you're invincible, you really should be in the book. It's an amazing opportunity to share your story with the world. So this is Linda West with Living Life, Inc. You guys have a good night, and remember, go out there and forgive those who you're harboring feelings about them, because those feelings that you're harboring are hurting you much more than they're hurting them. Have a good night, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.